Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. So I've been away a little while and been over to visit my good friend Bill Balch, who lives in Connecticut, USA, and we took the opportunity whilst I was over there to go to Yale University and shoot some scenes there. So I've got some material I'm going to take you through over the next few weeks and months, show you what we've been doing in Connecticut and around that area. But this shot here is Woodbridge Hall, the administration office, I think built in 1701 in Yale. The building itself is beautiful. They've recently changed the road here in the last few years now into a footpath, so it makes for a really nice shot. And so what I've done here is I've gone for a day to night. We shot actually in the middle of the day, and we started off with this image here. And I'm going to show you in this video how to process an image like this into a day to night image, give it that sort of real black and white appeal. If you've got a few minutes, take a moment to pop over and have a look at my website. There's one workshop for this year remaining, and I have one place left on the workshop. So Medieval's English cities, you can go to information, tell you a bit about it. We're going to start off in London for a couple of days, go to Winchester, see the cathedral at Winchester. It's a stunning building, and also Salisbury and see the cathedral there and the surrounding countryside. We're going to pop up to Stonehenge and shoot Stonehenge, and we're going to go to Bristol and Bath as well. So it's a 10-day trip. Prices at the bottom there. One place remaining. Love to have you fill that slot. That's a total of 6 people. That I don't tend to have too many people in my workshops. It's much easier, more personal when there's a smaller number. We're going to stay at some really nice English country hotels. It's going to be a fabulous trip. So if you're interested in joining us there, then go to the contact page on my website, jrmafflin.uk, and send me a note, and I can send you the details. And we go from there. Also, whilst you're here, take a look at my gear page. You can see the equipment I use. That's all I have, nothing more. I just shoot 3 lenses, 1 camera, the Canon R5, fabulous camera, as are all cameras, I think, these days, really good. I run with relatively small bag, and the tripod fits inside the bag, so it works quite well. And also I use a Freewell V2 Mag High Pro filter set, which gives you HD filters and polarizer all in one filter. So if you're interested in purchasing that filter, you can find a affiliate link below, and there's a discount code you can use from there. Anyway, if you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, it'd be great for you to subscribe and join me. And if you like the video, please click like, and I always welcome your comments and questions and tips. Please put those down below. I always do my best to answer all of them. Okay, let's get started. So where do I normally start? Well, first thing I always do when I'm working with my images is go down to denoise in Lightroom. It's an awesome function. It provides a good deal of noise correction. And you might say, well, why at ISO 100? Your noise levels should be relatively low, which is true. But if I zoom in here and just open up the exposure a little bit, so you can just see the window here, you can see that there is some degree of noise here. If I zoom in a little bit closer, I think we're at 300, but I'm going to go to 400, and you can see that there is noise here. So what we're going to do, we're going to run the denoise function. Now, depending on the speed of your computer and how modern it is, it will depend on how long it takes to run. So probably need to be just a little bit patient, but I'm going to go around about 35% on the selection, because the noise level is already quite low, because we were at ISO 100 and it was the daytime. We don't need to overdo the correction. So 35%, it's saying it estimates 9 seconds here. So I'm just going to click Edit Enhance. And as you can see up in the top left corner, it will process the denoise for this image. So I'm going to stay zoomed in so you can see what level of correction that we get. There we go. So it's pretty well got rid of all the noise. I'll zoom back to 200%. And we see we've got a very clean image. So I generally do that on most images. I find that denoise is worth between 4 to 5 stops of noise correction. So you could actually shoot this scene at 1600 ISO, and with the denoise function, you're able to bring that back towards 100 or 200 ISO, which is really awesome. Now, whilst I'm down here, I'm also going to look at lens correction and just make sure that these two boxes are ticked. Remove chromatic aberration. That takes away the magenta and the green edges that sometimes you'll see where you have high contrast. Some lenses do produce a little bit of chromatic aberration. Thankfully, modern lenses are very, very good correcting for chromatic aberration, so we don't generally see too much. Then the second tick box here, enable profile correction. Well, if you tick that, the lens on your camera has a profile that's provided for it, and you can see if I switch it off, you can see that the perspective changes. Is more of a sort of push towards the center. We were at 16 millimeters, so we were quite wide. But what the profile correction does is it gives you the ability to flatten the image, and also it will take away from the very far corners any vignetting that you might have as well as a result of using the lens. If your lens doesn't come up automatically, you can just go through the selection. So you can select the manufacturer, and then you can try to find your lens in the list and select it manually, and then a profile is added, which Adobe and Canon in this case have worked out. You can also vary the amount of distortion and vignetting yourself by using these sliders, but it's just a little important point just to pick up on lens correction. It does do quite a good job. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the crop selection here, and this lamp is too close to the edge to be usable. So what I need to do is crop this image, and I also want to try to create a sort of start to these leading lines on this road here, and there's rather a lot of pathway here at the bottom which I'd like to try to correct. So I'm going to bring the side over here just to miss this lamp. I'm going to make sure it's at the very top, and I'm going to bring the bottom up until it reaches the corner. This curbstone reaches the corner here, and then on this side I'm going to bring this over to match, so that we've got the curbstone coming into this corner, curbstone coming into this corner, and that's the shot we've got. Now, ideally, we want to go with standard sizes. So if you do go over to make sure the padlock's unlocked, go to custom and click custom, and then you can pick a specific perspective. And here I'm going to go for 1610, which is pretty close to the selection I had. And I'm just going to move that to the very top because I want to be sure that we've got this sort of little bit of sky through the trees there. And you can see that corner is still on the curbstone, and that corner there still on the curbstone. Probably could even move it just slightly to the right. There we go. So that's the crop I want. I'm going to hit return to accept the crop. Now, before I go any further, I would really like to correct the perspective. You can see that because of the size of the building and because we were at such a wide angle, we are getting a little bit of perspective push towards the left and right of the building. It's sort of falling away there, and it's falling away here, and this line isn't completely straight. So normally to do that, I would go down to transform, and in transform I would either click auto, which I can do there, but that still doesn't seem to correct it over to the left here. This is now straight, but this is still falling away, and this is still falling away. So then I would go to guided. That would be the next step, and then I would take perhaps the edge of this building here, just going to go down to there, take on that brick line, so we've got a straight line there, and I'd go over to this side over here and do the same. Just take down the edge of the building there and take the same to correct it. Now, in doing that, this is still looking like it's falling away. Even though it's an optical illusion, we can just pull the bottom over to the left or right, just to pull that over to try to correct that optical illusion that we're seeing there, maybe just a little bit more. And the same over here, we can just pull that in slightly to the left, and that will pull this out to give us a straight line, and that's now looking like the perspective is correct. However, we have a problem. The building has gone out of the top of the image because it's pulled the perspective from left to right, and it's actually pushed it off the top, and that is not what I want to do. I need to have that little bit of space at the top. So I'm going to switch that off. As you can see, that I just need that little bit of space to give the image a sort of a border, if you wish, around this building. So how can we deal with the perspective? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over into Adobe Photoshop. So you just right click on the image, go to editing, and then go to edit in Adobe Photoshop. And then I'm going to click on that, and we're going to go over into Photoshop. Here we are. So let's just so here we are in Photoshop. So I'm just going to centralize the image. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass down here and go to fit screen. Right. So what can we do to correct the perspective on this building? Now there's some really good tool here in Photoshop. If I go to edit and go to perspective warp. Now this gives us the ability to be able to adapt the image in blocks. And what we can do is we can draw effectively a box. Just going to pull that for the second here, and I want to put these dots on the edge of the building. So I'm just going to put that on the top corner there. That line is going to run down into the bottom of this building, making sure it's exactly on that line of the edge of the building there. And then I'm going to do the same over here, guessing where the edge of that building is. I'd say about there, and then just pulling that over. So we've got a nice line. So we've sort of drawn a square on the front of that building. What we're then going to do is we're going to draw another square here next to it. Okay, and we can connect these squares up with the ones that we've got. So we just link it there. So that one's now linked. And then what we can do is we can bring this down to the edge of the building here, pulling a straight line down and trying to find that sort of line where the building would lay. You can see this little paving stone here that's running away. Use that as your guide, and use the roof line. There we go, making that vertical. But I also want to make sure that the path is properly corrected for perspective. So I'm just going to come off the end of the building there, and I'm just going to pull this down towards here, and I'm just going to keep that straight going up. So just a straight line on there. So we've got 3 perspective squares, as you can see here now. So now we've done that, up at the top left, we are in layout already, which is where it starts. But what we can do is click warp. And now we can take any one of these little buttons and we can move the building around to get the perspective correct. So I want to just, this center line here just needs to go slightly to the left at the top. There we go. So I've just moved that over to the left. That fall away we were talking about earlier, just need to correct for that. So that needs to come over at the top as well. So just moving this dot over, and I'm just going to pull the bottom out. There you go. And the same over here. We just need to pull the bottom out ever so slightly to get that sort of looking straight. So that looks better. I can just pull that over just a bit more. There we go. And then over here, we can do the same. Because this is falling away just a little bit, we can bring this up just slightly. As you can see, that's just brought that up ever so slightly. And this doesn't really matter at the top here. So I'm quite happy with that. Now, having adjusted that, you can see that we've just got a little edge showing now around the edges. So we'll correct for that in a second. But I'm just going to click the check mark here, and that will render that scene now. So the building's now looking a lot better. We've still got the top of the building in the shot, right? I think that's the important thing here. Is what I wanted to maintain. Now, whilst we're in Photoshop, we can do a little bit of tidying up. So we do have the new generative remove function in Lightroom, which is very good, but I still find that the generative fill function in Photoshop is slightly better. It's not trying to put a replacement image in when you just delete things. It just tries to correct. So at the moment, I'm still a big fan of generative fill. And of course, every time you use generative fill, you are using one of your tokens from your monthly allowance. So just bear that in mind. So generally, we will use the remove tool rather than generative fill to save on tokens. So I'm just going to select the lasso tool up here in the top left in the tool menu. You can right click to find that you've got polygonal lasso and you've also got the standard lasso. So I'm take the standard lasso here, and I'm just going to go around this drain because this is quite a big thing right in the middle of the image here at the bottom. So I'm just going to go around there, and I'm going to click generative fill, and then I'm not going to write anything in the box, and I'm just going to click generate. Now each time I use generative fill, I will just speed the video up quickly so we don't have to sit and wait each time for the image to be sent to Adobe and return. There we go. And of course, like always, we get 3 options for this area. This one's pretty good anyway, but option 1, option 2, option 3. I think actually option 2 is the best. So I'm now going to want to get rid of this leaves. Now, rather than just using generative fill all the time, as I said earlier, what we can do is we can go into the remove tool, okay, which is J, click J, and then select remove tool. Now, and go back to the base layer to allow us to use it. And I can just paint over those leaves and let the remove tool remove it. Now, this doesn't use a token from your list because it's all done locally on the computer, and it will remove, and it does a pretty good job. There is a slight mark there. You can see, if I just undo that for a second, you can see there it is. And then if I redo the selection, you can see it's not quite perfect. Whereas if you use generative fill, you'll find that it will be a better finish. And I can just show you that. I'll come back here now. We'll go back into the lasso tool. Let's just zoom in a little bit on that area so we can see what we're dealing with. Hold the spacebar down to move the image to the center, and then we're going to get the lasso tool, and we're just going to go around these leaves here just to remove them, and we're going to use generative fill and generate. And here we go. Much better finish. So that's option 1, option 2, option 3. Going to go with option 3. I think that looks quite nice. Yep. And it gets the stonework, just perfect. So that's what we're after. Now, whilst we're zoomed in, I'm just going to hold down the space bar, and I'm going to just move up to this sort of fall away shot over here where the road disappears down. So let's use the remove tool to correct a couple of these things here. So I'm just going to go into my remove tool, J. I'm just going to make the brush a little bit smaller. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to paint over the things. Just a few little things here, like the people with their fluorescent jackets on. Just want to remove that. And also just want to remove the blue so it doesn't stand out there. So that's done. There's a couple of people here walking through. And the remove tool does a really good job, and you're not using a token when you do that. But if I try to remove this whole area here and try to keep the perspective of the road, let me just fill that in. There we go. Let go. It's not a bad job falling away, but there's no sidewalk here. So just going to undo that with Command Z or Control Z on Windows, and I'm just going to go back into the lasso tool here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take a lasso around here, and just sort of take out the area. There we go. Making sure you've got any shadows in that shot. So I'm going to click generative fill and generate. And you can see it's put the road in all the way into the distance, which is very different to the remove tool. So that's option 1, that's option 2, that's option 3. None of those are still good enough. So I'm just going to click generate again and let it run another one. So that's the 4th. You can have some plants on the side there. I think that one looks all right, actually. That looks pretty good. Now, over here in the selection window, you can see that's the one we've selected. All 6 of them are shown there. You can see 3 little dots. If you click on the 3 little dots, you can just say, yeah, I like that one. That's good. And then you can give some feedback back to Adobe if you want to. So whilst we're here, I'm also going to remove this this bicycle because it's quite broken. The front wheel's all bent and twisted. So I'm just again using the lasso tool here. Just going to run around that bicycle. There we go. Just going around outside. Click generative fill and generate. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Option 3 is very good. So I'm just going to click back on the background here, go back into the remove tool, and I'm just going to make the brush a little bit smaller here. Just going to take out these signs. I know you can get rather carried away. I've got to be honest, and start trying to deal with every little micro detail. Bear in mind, we're zoomed into something like 200% at the moment. So that's tidy enough. Just hold space bar down. I can move to the right. This is one of these sort of emergency areas that they have on campus at Yale. So I'm just going to still using the remove tool. I'm just going to take that out as well. There we go. That works quite well. And then I'm just going to move around, make sure we've got nothing else in the scene that we'd like to remove. And I'm not a big fan of the of these vent pipes coming out the window here. You'd think they'd do better, wouldn't you, really? But I'll just block that in for now using the remove tool. And yeah, I think we're pretty good. So I'm just holding the space bar down as we go around, just to see that we've got everything sorted. We do. So going to go back to the magnifying glass, click on fit screen. There we go. And I might take out this door switch here for the disabled access. So I'm just going to again select the remove tool, just highlight what it is we want to do. Now let's see how clever it is at removing. Didn't get the other side of that ball there, as you can see. Didn't do so well. So just going to Command Z undo that. We're going to go back to the lasso tool. In fact, what we could do, right click, we'll go to the polygonal tool here, and we can just draw straight lines around this particular object. There we go. Join them back up. So click generative fill and generate. Let's see if that can put the stone ball back in on the top. So there we go. Much better job. Option 2, option 3. I think option 3 is the best one. So all sorted. So let's zoom back out to full screen. Is there anything else we need to do here before we send it back to Lightroom? I think what I will do is perhaps just go into the crop tool and just take out these little areas at the bottom and the top. So we're just going to come up a little bit on that one. Just going to come over slightly on this one just to get that curbstone back in to that edge. And I think we have to take a tiny bit off the top. I think we just got a little tiny bit there. Can't quite move it, just one or two spots there. So what we do is we go back to the zoom here, and then we just zoom in. Got the positive. We zoom into this top edge here. Just move it up to the very top so we can see that line there. As you can see, we go back into the crop tool, and now we can move it just a little bit. There we go. Hit return. Go back to the magnifying glass fit screen, and we are back in. You can see that we've still got a little bit of line there. Now I don't really want to adjust the crop again because I've got the curbs into these bottom corners just where I want them. So we can fill that quite easily using the remove tool. So again, if I go back into here, select my remove tool, and just select the background layer so the remove tool works, I can just take the remove tool and just run it down. Just run it down this line, and the remove tool will figure out that we don't want this white line there. There we go, and it's filled it in for us. So that's perfect. Okay, I think as far as we can go with Photoshop, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to click on File, Close, and Save. And what that will do is it will put it back into Lightroom for us. There we go. We're now back into Lightroom. And we can click on Fit. So we've got it back in the scene. So we've got all the corrections made. We've got that lovely perspective going off into the distance now. And you know, really happy image. So now we can actually process the image. Now we've corrected the perspective and removed all of the things in the shot that we didn't really like. So what are we going to do with this image? Well, I think it really owes itself to a good day tonight. So we are going to do a day tonight on this. So the first things we're going to do is go back to the standard selection tools here. We're going to make the whole scene darker, and then we're going to relight the scene as we want it to sort of create an effect of moonlight here with the light coming through from the trees. So we're going to take the exposure down, and we're going to take it down quite a way. I would say probably around about 2.7, something like that. Going to drop the highlights right down. We're going to add a little bit of blue to the scene, just to create that sort of nighttime look. I'm going to open the shadows up all the way. So now we've got a very dark image. And what we need to do now is think about how we could relight this. Now, the big one is to relight using the lanterns that we've got here. We could do those first. We could also put some windows illuminated on the building. But I think we still need to go darker because of the light coming through to get that effect. So I'm going to take this down to -3. There we go. So it actually looked quite difficult to see now. But don't worry, you've still got all the data because all we've done is shifted the exposure down. So all the data is in there. And so we are seeing some blacks just at the very bottom clip on the histogram. And you can see there's very little up here. But we can re-illuminate this scene quite easily. So let's zoom into this lantern here. Let's go in a little bit closer. Let's go into 200%. And what we can do is go to masks. We can select a radial gradient. We can take a radial gradient that's slightly bigger than the lantern itself. Place it over the center there. Take the exposure to 100%. And if you follow me here on YouTube, you'll know that my day to night effect involves subtracting a brush to remove this. So I'm going to put the feather down to 0, flow to 100% because we want to remove effectively part of this radial. So it's just showing you there that we'll do. So we're going to click and hold, and we're just going to freehand, because this is a little curve here. We can freehand it around that curve. You can see we missed a little bit there, so make the brush a little bit smaller. And we can just get in there and just take that edge away. There we go. Now it's quite difficult. Some people struggle freehanding. So another way you can do it is you can click at the top here, click once, hold down the shift key, and then just follow the edge of the lantern just by clicking once, clicking twice. And because I'm still holding down the shift key, I can create a straight edged curve if you wish, just to follow it through. And I think some people do prefer to do that because we don't all have a completely steady hand. I do get a few questions. People say to me, well, what mouse do you use? Or do you use a whack-on pad or something like that? And actually, I just use trackpad. That's all I use. I think the Apple trackpads are very good. I am using this on my Mac Studio computer. But so I'm just holding the shift down again. So I have a separate trackpad, wireless trackpad, which I use for this one. But I can quite often just use my trackpad on my laptop. So you don't need to carry additional equipment. Now, I just made the brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to paint around the edge of what I've just done. So you can see I did a little edge there using the shift click, and now I can just come in and take more of it out. I'm going to make the brush bigger again, so we can just make sure we got rid of all of that radial gradient there. So all that's lit is the lamp. That's all we need to do. Now, click on the center of that radial, right click and duplicate the mask, which means we've got two on top of each other. Now, this one's rather bright, but what we can do is take the top one and make it smaller. And that will give you the impression that there is a light bulb inside the lamp itself. So if I just come away from there, and you can see I've zoomed out and the lantern is illuminated. Now it needs to perhaps be a little bit brighter. We can deal with that. But for the moment, I'm just going to put some light in below. So I'm going to go back into mask, create a new mask, go to radial gradient, and I'm just going to pull out a radial gradient. I'm going to turn it to an angle because this light would light down onto the path here. Just going to put it perhaps not quite so far, probably around about there. Just take it all the way across. So we're going to try and put some light in this area coming down from here. So again, we just move up the exposure to get it brighter in that area. There we go. Now, what we do need to do is take away this tree because this light's behind this tree. So we do need to just make sure that this isn't illuminated, and there's no reason to light this area over here. So I'm going to subtract a brush. This time I'm going to increase the feather slightly, take a small brush, and we're just going to go in. We can zoom in on the tree here. I'm just going to space bar it up. There we go. And we can just go along, clicking once, holding down the shift and just clicking those lines just to run along the edge of the tree there. We just come around the bottom of the tree. And I'm just going to come a little bit away from the edge because some light would be coming down from that light onto this edge here. Make the brush a little bit bigger and then just infill that area. So we've removed the light coming from there. And if I hover over the mask, you can see where I've been effectively just removing the mask. There we go, hover over there again, you see where we've been. So I also want to create a bit of a shadow from this tree as well. So I'm just going to come out this way and just take away the mask coming out this way. So that sunlight is quite bright there. Let's have a look at the mask and see we've created that sort of effect, if you like, of it coming away. So let's go back to this lantern, mask number 1. It needs to be brighter. So what we can do is, if our exposure is already all the way to the top, we can bring the highlights up, and we can also bring the whites up as well. You can see you can boost the brightness by bringing those up on the lantern. I'm just going to add a little bit of color in there, just a little bit. So let's go back to the full image. So we've illuminated that area there. We want to do the same with this lantern over here. There's one behind that tree there, and there's a couple of lanterns down here that we also need to do. But before we do those, we just need to realize that this lantern itself is going to cast light onto the side of this building. So let's create another radial gradient. Let's take the radial gradient, just alter its position slightly so it matches the angle of the building. Place the light where that would be the center, roughly around about there. And then I'm just going to bring the exposure up here, and you can see we can mimic light being cast on the side of the building. I'm just going to add a little bit of color to it, not too much, just a little bit, and a little bit of magenta just to correct for the green effect there. Just make it a little bit brighter, and it gives you that sort of effect of the light bouncing off the side there. But again, this is slightly around the corner, so this would be in shadow. So we're going to go into that mask, subtract a brush, I'm going to take the feather back to 0 because I want a nice hard edge along this edge here. I'm just going to click at the top here, one click, hold down the shift at the bottom here and just draw that line. So you've got that strong line there. And do the same again here, bigger brush, and just brush that away. So you've got that light coming around that corner, sort of, this is in shadow. And we can use this light over here to light the front of the building. Okay, I'm just going to jump back onto this radial, the one we did for the light here, and I'm just going to bring the highlights down so that's not too bright in there. And I might even bring the whites down just a little bit, just to bring that sort of highlight from the sun there, which we want to be more like moonlight. And we can bring up the exposure just a little bit more. So we're lighting it there. Now what you can do is, if you want to split this so that this bright area is not as bright and this darker area is brighter, we can raise the exposure further. So we're lighting this path here. Select this one here, and then we could subtract an object. And using the object selection, let me just make the brush a bit bigger, we could select the bright area that we want to correct. Here we go. So we'll allow the object selection to select that. We'll subtract another object, and we'll take this bright area here. So just select that bright area there, and that will darken that as well. And you can see a little bit along there, again, same thing, subtract object, little brush along the top of there, and just select those bright areas. And it's a good way of reducing certain areas. Get in there as well and just darken those down. So you've got the light coming off of there. You know, that light's still a little bit too yellow. So I'm just going to push that more towards the blue, just to balance that color, because I think the brickwork color does affect this. So yeah, that works really good. I'm just going to go back into this one here, and we're just going to boost that exposure even more, just to light that area there. Add a little bit more color to that one. There we go, that's nice. So that's a good way of controlling the brightness. You can see here that this is still rather bright. So again, we can create a new mask, go to object, and just select the bright area here that we think is a little bit too bright. There we go. And then what we can do is we can just reduce the exposure on that area a little bit, just to make it work very, very well. And I'm just going to add a brush to that object that we've just done, which is darkening that area, and just pick up these lighter areas here. You can see just darkening those down. Now I think we need to create a bit of light in this bottom right corner. So what we're going to do is select create a mask, radial gradient, and we're going to just take another radial down here in this bottom corner. Just going to turn it slightly, raise the exposure down here, so bring that up a little bit brighter. Let's bring that light out. Let's add a little bit of color to that, not too much. Now we have the same problem with the brightness again, you know, these bright areas. So we can reduce the highlights, that will help. And then just do a little bit more to help with these bright highlights here. I'm just going to take the white slider down to as low as I can. So you've got this sort of light effect in this bottom corner. We might add in a bit of a vignette into this corner towards the end, but we'll deal with that when we get there. So what I'm going to do now is go over and do this light fitting here. So what we're going to do is zoom in. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a new mask, a new radial, and we're going to light the front of this building. Just get to the angle of the building, as you can see there. That lamp is, if you follow that line there, you'll see that lamp its center is about here. So we're just going to put some light there. I'm just going to come a bit lower, and then we will light up the front of the building as well. So we'll just put a bit of light in there, add that color just a little bit, just to balance it off. That works well. Now you can see that's quite a good effect. This is quite dark over here, so we can always reselect this one here and increase that brightness on this wall as well. Just backing that color off just a little bit more. Don't want it to be too. There we go. Just get the color right. And that works quite well. There's another lamp just over here, hidden just out of shot. So I'm just going to speed through the video. So we've got the light where we want it. We've got the trees still in shadow. I'm probably going to darken the top of the sky down here a little bit. So we can do that with creating a new linear gradient. And we're going to sort of come across and down from the top. So this red dot means everything behind it is 100% effect. And then from the red dot to the white dot, we go from 100% to 0 effect. So if I lower the exposure here, I can effectively have it darker up here, but keep the light down here. And also I can reduce the highlights for that area of the top of the screen as well. So I'm just going to turn a little bit more of an angle, make it a little bit shorter. There we go, because I like the light coming onto these leaves here. It looks pretty good. Good, right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to speed up the video. And I'm just going to go into the distance down here and do the remainder of these lights. There's one here, and there's one over here. Just going to pick those up now. So I'm going to speed the video up. Back in a moment. Okay, we're just going to go back to full size. Maybe a little bit more light is needed around this area, but I think what I'd like to try to do is sort of show that there's some sort of moonlight or something up here. So I'm going to probably put a moon in this little gap up here. So we're going to create another radial gradient. I'm going to pop one in here. It's not going to be quite big. So this sort of size, but it's going to have lots of feather, 100% feather. We're going to brighten up the sky in that area just a little bit. There we go, 2 stops. We're then going to right click on here, duplicate this mask, and we're going to create a little round moon. We're just going to pop that in there. Such. Just going to pop away from that a second just to see. So that looks quite good. That looks quite reasonable. We need a bit of a glow around the tree area, so we can go back into masks here, create another radial gradient, and we can take a much bigger one, this sort of size, pop that into the trees there, and just add a little bit just to brighten that up. But of course that brightens the moon up that was in there, so we can go back to the previous mask, reduce that a little bit, and we can go to the previous mask again and just remove that a little bit so we get that moon effect back again. So I'm just going to do that, go back to the middle one, brighten that moon up just a little bit more. There we go. So we've got the sort of moon shining through and it's casting this light on. Now, I actually think this shot's going to look better as a black and white, but what I will do is let's just add in some blue tone to this. Not too much, just a little bit. And let's add in a little bit of magenta. And then I'm just going to back the saturation off. Maybe bring the vibrance down a little bit as well. So we don't go full black and white, but we create a sort of nighttime look by adding in more of the moonlight colors. So just backing that off just a little bit there. And that's looking all right. Now, we do need to just add in some details. There's a dark area here. Top of the buildings here also a bit. It needs to be darkened, but this sky needs to be darker away from the moon. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into mask. We're going to create a mask. We're going to select the sky. Okay. Now, hopefully it can pick up the areas. Now, we don't want the building illuminated, but it's got the rest of the sky sort of picked up there. So I'm just going to subtract a brush. And I'm just going to take away, just going to add in some feather, bring the flow up quite high. And I'm just going to take a brush along the edge of that building there, click once, hold down the shift and click again, just to remove, just leaving a little bit, because that's what I've got the feather for, is to leave a little bit of an edge and just take out this selection. Sky all around here is fine. Don't want the building lit up too much, so I'm just going to come across there. So that all looks okay. I want to add a little bit more into the sky over here, so I'm just going to add a brush and I'm going to select auto mask. So when I start on a bright area to add in the mask, I can do that. So that works quite well. So what we can now do, and this is the real clever bit, is we can go to that mask that we've just selected. We can go to the 3 little dots and we can intersect with a linear gradient, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to darken the sky away from the actual moon. So what we do is go to the edge here and we bring the linear gradient up towards the moon in one direction. Okay. And then with that linear, we can darken that away. There we go. So we get this more darkness on this side. That's looking quite nice. I just need a little bit more light on the front of the building. So I'm going to create another radial, quite a big one this time. I'm going to pop it on the front of the building here. Just make that a little bit bigger. And there we go. Just get that in there. Quite a big one. Just going to brighten that up, top of the building a little bit there. And I want to subtract the sky, so intersect with the sky and just take that sky bit away. You've got the moonlight coming through here. This looks okay. Yep. And then it's just this area down here. So radial gradient. Just take a radial gradient and apply it to this area here. Just brighten that up a little bit. There we go. Take down the highlights so they're not too bright. So we just got some detail down there. And I'm quite happy with this, to be honest. It's looking pretty good. I think it just needs probably to go black and white. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on the whole thing, go to Edit in Silver Effects Pro, copy with adjustments. This will take us into here. And then we can go high structure harsh or high structure smooth. These are presets that I've already set in. So let's just go down, have a look. Full spectrum inverse, fine art. Oh, that's a bit too bright. Full contrast and structure, too much. So fine art looks to be pretty good. I just to brighten that slightly. There we go. A little bit more structure to the image. That looks nice. And then just gonna open the shadows about halfway and just bring those highlights down just a little bit more. That's nice. And then we've got some filters. We can run the filters here. So a blue filter, a green filter, a yellow filter, orange filter, and a red filter, and back to standard grey, which I think is probably the best there. And I just want to add a tone to this. I'm just going to go down to toning. I'm going to select selenium, which is my favorite one. Just gives you a nice color there. And yeah, I'm going to send this back into Lightroom. So it's quick, just a quick edit there using Silver Effects Pro. Go back into Lightroom. There's the image. We need a vignette, so we're going to go down to the bottom, select vignette. Just going to bring that in there. We're going to go -45, somewhere around there, and then remember to open up the feather, just to open the image up. I'm going to add some contrast to this shot. There's a little bit of contrast there. Bring the highlights down just a little bit more. Open up the shadows just a little bit. Just going to boost the whites because I want the moon to sort of come through up there. And I think what we do need is a little bit of sharpening. And I'd like a little bit more clarity in this shot. So not too much. Tiny bit of texture. Bring that down a little bit. Those highlights could come down just a little bit more. Just trying to find, this is just a little bit bright over here. So what we can do is we can take a radial gradient here and just pop one over this area here just to try to bring that down just a little bit more. Don't want to make it look too dark, but I just want to bring that just a little bit. And I'm going to say that that's a done shot. So day to night, black and white, changed the perspective, added a moon in to get that bright sunshine into a more of a moonlit scene. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click like. Always enjoy to see your comments, questions and tips that you may have. So please put those down below. If you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join me on this never-ending journey I'm having here on YouTube, having great fun. And yeah, for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.